It's Saturday morning and we're already chuckling. How are you, Mr. Freeman?
I am doing super well. Just finished up about a 6 or 7 week stint of first starting in Santa Barbara and then doing for Santa Barbara with you, which was you and Kimberly, which was fantastic. And then 4 other intensive trainings and or workshops. So yeah, I'm sort of unwinding from all of that.
So you can take a break from the heavy stuff and let's do something light and breezy today.
Well, I'm not so sure it's going to quite work out that way because we always get into what we need to get into.
That's true. That's true.
I'm able to shift gears a little bit here.
Well, good morning and welcome everybody. Mr. Dewey Freeman and I'm Mark Sylvester. We are the Elder Council. There's a lot of new guys in the nation and who may not have heard from us or about us. And we started a little over a year ago in an attempt to create a show that if you believed in time travel, which I do, and you could go back and talk to your 25 or 35 or 45-year-old self, just when you're about to make a key decision, would you listen?
So we still don't know the answer. Really quick question.
I mean, it's you. You know what you look like at that age. And boom, all of a sudden you're staring at yourself in the mirror or something. And you're like, well, maybe you don't want to go on a second date with her.
Yep.
Right.
And then you do anyway.
Because we're not above telling ourselves to fuck off.
Yep.
Right. Exactly. Hey, fuck you. What do you know, old man?
Yeah, what do you know? What do you know about anything?
Well, listen, speaking of what we know, it's been a tough week here. Not sure when people are going to be listening to this. But the issue of safety has come up in a rather large way. And I thought we would talk about, have we lost our sense of safety?
Mm. I believe on some levels we have. Might as well just jump in here. Part of what Mark and I are talking about are the 2 mass shootings that have taken place in the last couple of weeks, one in a grocery store and one in a school in Texas. What strikes me is, well, in the grocery store, there were elders, and in Texas, there were children. And when our elders and when our children are not safe, I believe that many people end up feeling like they're not safe and the world's not a safe place to be.
In a country in which one could argue is at the top of the food chain on many metrics, on this one we're way down near the bottom.
Yeah, we have not figured this out. And yeah, what just went through my mind was we've not figured this out. And then usually when I say that, there's some solution that comes to mind or some direction. And at this point, I'm not sure that I even have that direction.
Well, let me offer this, because I've been thinking about this, looking forward to having a conversation with you, because we have this lovely he said dynamic of bringing our years to a given topic. And I was thinking of what are the conditions that lead to a sense of safety. And if we have lost our sense of safety, then what conditions have been removed? So I thought
Mm,
that might be a way into this conversation, because for sure we can feel, what the fuck, I mean, it gets polarizing really, really fast. So I want to figure out, I don't feel like I can change the state, my community, but I can't change any of that. I have one
right.
vote, right? But I can change myself. I could
Mhm.
totally change myself. And by extension, I hold state over others that I deal with, and hopefully I can change their mind. So, if I didn't have that sense, I wouldn't be doing the work I do. Um,
Right.
so, if it is about what we do to prepare, it got me thinking about, when have you felt safe? I know, for you live in a mountaintop, it's different. Your safety involves wild animals. The safety of your horses involves wild animals, and you prepare and you do things. I go around, make sure the house is locked up and the heater's off and the stove's not on, and none of the obvious things are going to fail, hopefully, in the night,
Mhm.
and I can sleep secure. And you'll remember in one of the earliest shows, you said, as a human, we wake up and the first thing hey, is the world okay?
Mhm.
Then am I okay?
Right.
Which speaks to safety, I think.
Um, what's interesting for me is I actually do feel safe in my home. I feel safe in my community, well, at least for the most part. Um, and as I'm thinking about this, I'm going to break safety down into two places, two parts. One are sort of natural events that we literally do not have control over,
Mhm.
such as about um, actually a week ago today, we got 18 inches of snow here, which um, that's heavy duty. It's cold, it's wet. My horses have lost all of their winter coats. Snow's piling up where we couldn't even get up the hill to them and any kind of machinery. Um, so there's that level that we need to work with. Heat, cold, rain, hurricanes, tornadoes, those kinds of things. Then there's another level of something that we cause. And this is an aside. Somebody, rightfully so, could say, well, because of
Climate change.
climate change, we're
Yeah,
causing more severe weather. And that's actually probably a
that's
true
fair.
statement. But that's not quite what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about is something that there's one thing to go, okay, I need to deal with this really intense snowstorm. And safety there means being able to do what I need to do when I need to do it and knowing how to do that. Which,
Knowing how to do that is equals preparation.
right, equals preparation, equals experience,
Yeah.
equals a bit of predictability, equals actually, depending on my partner, that we will do things together, that if one of us isn't here, the other one knows how to do that. I mean, all of those kinds of things. Um, there's also a sense of knowing that it will be over in a given amount of time.
Oh,
So,
okay. Okay.
so the snowstorm, I mean, now, if you look out, the
All right.
grass is
Beautiful.
incredibly green. It's beautiful. Our fire danger is down because of the snow. The horses are going, I mean, they've lost their winter coats. They're shining up. They're getting all shiny. But there's a predictability in that last Thursday and Friday, when this was coming in, that within a few days it would be gone, and we would need to make it through a finite, relatively specific period of time. With what we're talking about with the shootings, for instance, there's no predictability on
Right.
when this might end. There's no time when we can literally let our guard down. There is no time when we go into, and I think one of the most scary things is going into places that are supposed to be safe, such as schools, churches, grocery stores, stadiums, those kinds of places that have traditionally been safe places, that they no longer necessarily are. And we don't know when that's going to end, and there's no predictability on what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, the severity of what might happen. And having that lack of predictability, I think, really causes us to, not be safe, and two, have some sort of inner belief that we're prey, which is a pretty big deal. And I just saw you breathe, and what I know about my friend is that your brain is going 600 miles an hour.
Well, I was thinking how every one of these man-caused events, or caused by men, by the way, change everything because we react in a way to remove that threat from happening again. So we say school doors need to be locked. We need to have a police officer on campus. But then if you don't do those things, terrible things happen. But it got me thinking that I used to freely travel around the world. 80% of my time was spent traveling around the world. It was my most favorite thing I'd ever gotten to do in my life. And then I'm not sure if it was the shoe bomber first and then 9/11. I'm not sure which one happened, but everything changed. Mm-hmm. Right now, it's everything changed, and we all agreed to the change because we wanted to feel safe. Right. We agreed to that. Yet in this instance around gun violence, we can't agree on what it takes to be safe. We can agree that we won't give someone a driver's license unless they do these 18 things. I got my license 50 years ago, and I just heard my 16-year-old grandson is going to be 16. His dad was bemoaning the steps and the expense it was going to take to get him his driver's license, because I can kill people. Yet we don't do the same thing around guns. And I'm all for Second Amendment. I'm all of that. This is a gnarly problem. And I want to park that for just a second, because when you said we're prey, I don't know how to prepare for someone who sees me as prey.
Well, there's no preparation for that. In general, there's I think there's probably 3 levels. This is totally off the top of my head. I am making shit up.
That's the best part of this show.
But this is what really strikes me. Is one level is a psychological level, where of literally becoming able to live knowing that something bad may happen, which is interesting. Horses are prey animals. One of the reasons I work with people with horses is that a horse gets it if I'm working with somebody who's been traumatized, that person feels like they're prey. Well, horses get that. That's not a scary thing for horses. But what horses have is a heightened sense of danger. All of their senses are heightened, and their reaction time is actually 2 to 3 times faster than ours. So that is developed over time and evolutionary time.
That's one, that's psychological.
Yeah, so that's a psychological piece. And can you begin living with that without being in an aroused fear state? Well, that's a really hard thing to do. We're not actually designed for that.
That's for those who've heard of fight or flight, it's when that is engaged all of the time, your body can't sustain that, to your point. Is that right, Doc?
Yes. And when we're in that, cortisone goes through our bodies,
right,
which is the biggest chemical that sets us into that. And cortisone in our bodies for short periods of time is a good thing. Cortisone in our body for long periods of time creates heart attacks, high blood pressure, all kinds of other stuff going on. But that's sort of one arena. The other, I think, is community, is being able to have a community upon which we can depend. And where it's like that I have your back and you have my back.
Right.
And I could see the words right there.
Right.
And everything that you do, everything that I do, everything I know that Traver does, all of the men's work, it's like, I got your back, I got your six, I got your.
Yep.
And interestingly enough, even in like when you and Kimberly were running the Santa Barbara event, there was no physical threat. There was some emotional vulnerability, but even with that emotional vulnerability, we were asked and being asked to get each other's backs, which allowed each person to be more vulnerable.
Yeah.
So the community piece is, I think, a really big piece, which a lot of men don't have. Many men don't have community. The sense of isolation, sense of betrayal is just not there. Well, the sense of betrayal and isolation is there. The community just is not there. Let me be clear about that. I didn't say that well. And then the third piece is, do we have a way to defend ourselves when needed? So let me see if I can recap these. One is learning how to live.
As usual.
Thank you, sir. Would you like to recap them? You probably do a better job than me.
The first one was psychological, right? So I'm thinking of, I'm going to go back to preparation. So psychologically, am I prepared? Meaning, like, for in my world as a black belt, we did this dynamic circle where you're in the center. There's 8 black belts around you, and they're either coming at you with a knife or a cane or a short stick or hands or feet, and you don't. Sometimes you're even blindfolded. And so, one of the benefits of that is that your body gets used to the surge of adrenaline so that it won't halt you in a time of real danger. The adrenaline, you'll be used to what that adrenaline feels like. So I think psychologically, we're saying, you said the horses know their prey, so they got that. And so we get lulled into this false sense of security. Right. I'm in a school, I'm in a church, I'm on a plane, I'm on a, it's like, so you have some system, again, my IT's showing now, some system level process that's always on now. That's just kind of, are we good? Are we good? We're good. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Keep going. I got my radar. It's only friendlies on the radar, no hostiles. That's psychologically happening. The second one was community. And I built community software for 20 years, and the community can be 2 people. You and I are a very strong community, just
Right
you and
on.
I, right? And so community can be just one. So don't feel like you have to have a large social network. You're just a person that you can count on, that counts on you, that
Mhm.
has got your six, got your back. It's like, I know for me in improv, which is where that came from for us, was I'm going to step on a stage. I don't have anything. I have no idea. I might have been triggered by something that I saw in the last scene where the guy had kind of a scowly face. So I'm going to go out with a scowly face, but I don't have anything else. And I know my scene partner
Mhm.
isn't going to let me flounder. My scene partner
Exactly.
is going to come out and say, yeah, that broccoli Rob was really terrible. Now I have some, now we're playing, right? They had my
Mhm.
back. That sense of community also as a senior, right? For seniors, we understand or have learned that if you want to live longer, live in community, right? Don't live by yourself,
Right on.
right? You want community. So that's, and then the third one was around the ability to defend ourselves, which speaks to me around preparation as well. So as a martial artist, I know um, in living a martial life, my spidey senses lit up. If I go into an area where, ooh, my radar just said there might be hostiles here, or I'm by myself, I don't have my community with me. So now I'm gonna mentally think, okay, how's my back kick? What's my am I going to need any of those
Mhm.
tools? Which brings it. So those are the three, but brings it around to a term that I'd love you to help us understand in the way you're so good at: situational awareness.
Mm. So my question with that is, and I'm going to wrap this all the way back
Of
around.
course, good, perfect.
My question with that to you, and I actually believe I know the answer that you most likely will give, is, so this is for all the listeners, is when you get a gut level feeling of something, that something isn't right here, uh, do you believe it? Do you believe yourself?
Fucking trust your gut, man.
Right.
Because your subconscious, as we know, we've discussed many times, is 85% more present than you are.
At least. And the scientific term for trusting our gut or our gut is called
Oh,
neuroception.
okay.
That we have a part of our nervous system that is designed to pick up danger,
Huh.
stress, strife before our brain picks it up, before our eyes, our ears, our nose
Really?
pick it up. And so here's my question to you, a little thought experiment to you and everybody else is, have you ever walked into a room and everything looks wonderful and you walk in and your gut goes, something's wrong here? There's nothing that you would look at or see or even smell that you would go, yeah, something's wrong, but your gut's telling you something. And then 10 minutes later, someone punches someone out. That we know those things. That we, another thought experiment is, we walk into a room and it's chaotic, it's messy, you're looking around and you go, wow, this is sort of a mess. But your gut just is totally settled and gone, oh, okay. It's a really big deal. Um, what we have been trained to do is to not listen to our gut, not work with situational awareness, not look around and go, this may not be the best place to be right now. I'm going to switch into a different mode. A little bit ago, you
Going to
spoke
go to
about,
DEF CON 1.
yeah, yeah. A little bit ago, you mentioned our process of fight flight, which is really an important process. But if we're not used to, if we haven't done some level of preparedness for that, which I really like the fact that you were talking about preparedness, we can go another step, which we would go into freeze, faint, sleep, or dissociate. Well, if we go into either of those four, we're
done.
We're done.
You're
we
prey.
don't have a yeah, we don't have the ability to react. So there is a sense of doing some level of training that is really, 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 really important, of going, whether it be martial arts, whether it be an awareness class, whether it be a self-defense class, or whether it be meditation, yoga, sit spots, those kinds of things, to really find your ground and find out who you are and what can you do to respond to what.
Which reminds me of, I was never in the military. I was in a military academy, but not in the military as an adult. If they're not fighting, they're training. Same thing with first responders. If they're not fighting,
Right.
if they're not responding, they're training. It's constant training. And that is not a pattern that we adhere to in our day-to-day. We're not training. Now, I've said on the show, I said it when we did our live from Austin event, 30% of your time should strike that, Your Honor. 30% of your time could be training, whether that's reading, listening, studying. And I heard something today that I wanted to, and this is the perfect time to say it, which is read, think, act.
Right.
So in this case, someone's listening to this show. I would like to give everyone permission to think about the show, then act. We tend to not do step 2.
There's a whole piece. One is that level of having and right now I'm spacing the word, an action item, and doing something with it.
But I'm suggesting, because we're so fucking goal oriented, speaking about myself, it's the thinking, the intentionality. So I read a thing and then I immediately want to put it into action, as opposed to cogitate on it for a bit, think about that thing, let my subconscious absorb and soak that in. And I'm the guy who, I hear it, I do, bam, bam. But improv strengthens that muscle. So right. What I'm suggesting is that there's, on these bigger ideas, having that time to think. So let's bring it back around again to, what could you do to prepare, to defend? So here's a simple one. On the natural disasters, natural events, do you have a go bag? We live in California. Yes. Earthquakes, you have a go bag, right? Do I have a, when I walk into a space, do I take instead of just barreling in, do I take a second? Where are the exits? How's it look? Everything feel good? To your point, I'm just doing a situation check. And that's the kind of thing I think you have to do 21 times consciously before it becomes, oh yeah, I just kind of, you talk to military guys who are listening to this call are going, yeah, of course, dude, duh. But not everybody's been in the military, right? They don't know that.
We have been trained to be isolated and separated as men. which is actually one of the main causes. And I do want to throw a piece in here because it's just been sitting inside me. And Traver said this a few days ago in a piece that he put on Instagram, which I loved his piece on Instagram. If any of you men have not seen it, please go watch it. He spoke from his heart and his soul. So please watch that. We have been trained to be so isolated and so separated that we don't do community. That's why I put that second piece of community in there. We've also been trained to not act in community.
What does that mean?
What that means to me is when we're in community and we see another man struggling.
Oh, okay.
Because of our isolation, we have been trained not to go up to that man and say,
"Got your back. What's up?"
Yeah. Hey, brother, what's going on? You look like you're struggling.
Yeah.
Virtually every mass shooting there's been, if you look at what happened before what happened, there's always a place that could be where an intervention could have happened that someone skipped.
100%.
And there's a book called The Gift of Fear. Have you heard of that book?
No.
It's an amazing book. Gavin, I think that's his first name, Gavvin or something like that. Gavin DeBecker.
Who Traver used to work for.
Yeah, who Traver used to work for. And it was actually that book that got Traver into that. He read the book, then he called Gavin and went, I want to do something with this. But part of what Gavin goes through is that we give up our intuition, and he goes through case after case after case, whether it be men, women, children, whomever, where it's like there's always something back here. What happened before what happened that somebody knows it, and so many things are preventable and predictable. But when we get those hits, we have to step in. So I would recommend that everyone read that book, Gift of Fear.
We'll ask Ryan to put a link in the show note.
Yeah.
Let me take us, as we're staying in this human caused, I'm going to say man caused traumas, right? Where two things come to mind, and I want to make sure we address them. The one are in public space. I want to shift and talk about private space in two areas. One is not feeling safe at home in your relationship, whether you are the cause of someone not feeling safe or you don't feel safe. And I think right now, I'll just say that and let every man set the pencil down and make a box, make 3 lines. And the first one is psychological safety. Where are you at? Second one is community. Where are you at? And the third is defending. And just quick little audit and figure out what there, because there's going to be a gap there. There's going to be something you could do. But if you're the causer, right? Fuck you and go fix that. If you're the receiver of that, then do one of those 3 things. I think. But the other part of private, and I'll let you chat, is inside the workplace. There's a great book called The Culture Code by Coyne. And the main takeaway in him studying a lot of cases of high performing teams and high performing organizations, and what was it? The thing that was consistent across all of them was that leadership provided a sense of safety in the workplace. And that is safety around ideas. You're not going to be ridiculed. You're encouraged to speak up. There's no bad ideas there. You know how Kimberly and I are. We create a safe space. It's for that very specific reason. There's no bad questions, all that stuff. There's no ridicule. There's no, God, Johnny, that was a terrible thing to say. Like, you idiot. You don't, I mean, Johnny's never going to speak up again. He's never going to feel safe.
Right.
Right. And so, but let's go on the relationship side. What was going through your head as I was saying that?
All relationships are, to me, are based on how we make contact with another being. Or if there's a lack of relationship, what we do to inhibit contact with another being. When a safe space is provided, there's always contact, and there's always usually multiple contacts. And contact, just a reminder, is a place where our energetic, physical, emotional, and or spiritual boundaries touch another. That's what contact is. What's interesting about most violence is that a process of violence, and one of my definitions of violence is when we invade another's boundaries without any kind of permission.
Hmm.
And it might be the boundary, just the boundary of the walls of a school. It might be the boundaries of coming up too close to somebody in a workplace. It might be the boundaries of how you interact with your partner at home or your children. It might even be the boundaries of if you have an underlying belief that a person of one set of backgrounds or one set of cultures is better than somebody from another background or culture. When we believe that, we're invading boundaries. But it's the violence comes from the belief that it's okay to invade somebody else's boundaries. When we do that, there's no relationship. When there's relationship, we purposely do not invade somebody else's boundaries. And if there is a purpose to invade somebody else's boundaries, we do that with permission. And there are many levels of that. And this is actually a true story. Thursday, I went with a group of my friends, rode, did a 3-hour ride, covered maybe 13-ish miles. There was a man on the ride who I'd not met before. Totally, I really liked him. He was fun to ride with. Certainly would ride again with him. We'd gotten back. We were putting our horses back in the trailer, putting our stuff back in the tack room of our trailers. And I looked over, and all I see was his legs hanging out of the tack room. And I'm going, that does not look right. That does not look right. And I walked over, and he was unconscious.
Oh my gosh.
And basically, I have some background in first responder background.
Yeah, you're trained.
And I started, I checked his pulse. I started feeling for, I mean, I had no equipment. I didn't have a stethoscope. I had nothing other in my hands. I'm checking his forehead. My first quick assessment was he was having heat stroke and horribly dehydrated. I literally stripped him down with his shirt, open his shirt. By then, I was like within probably 10 seconds of starting CPR, but he woke up, became conscious, was able to talk, to breathe, and we ended up calling 911. But I stripped down his shirt. I started cooling him off with water, and then his stomach was horribly upset, and there was no place to go to the bathroom. We're out in the middle of a field. So I literally helped him take a dump out in the middle of the field. Now, would I do that under any other circumstance? No. Would I invade? No. So there was a piece of that circumstantially, there's times for us to step in and there's times for us not to. The reason I give that is that when somebody is really struggling in our community, it's really clear that he was struggling physically, but people struggle emotionally. People are literally at times dying inside. And we need to see that. We need to be able to see that and step in and ask permission to step in, but still step in and help somebody. Because it's that isolation. And it just turned out I was the last. Everyone else had pulled out in their trailers. I was the last one there, and I pulled out.
Thank God you were there.
Yeah, it was pure luck. It was pure luck that I was there.
So do we, when you are aware enough to know that someone's having this internal struggle to continue on your thing, and you know you have their back, and they sense you have their back, so they can relax. Like his body relaxed and his body got rid of the shit, literally, right? Literally got rid of shit, right? And I mean, kudos. That I don't know all the people listening if they could do that. I hope you could in that dire situation, and you did. I think that it wasn't a metaphor, but that story is the same. Can you hold someone as they dump their mental shit?
Exactly. That's exactly. Are you willing to do that?
And you did that without judgment. And he knew that. It's like you had to, man, I'm freely giving my time here because I need to hold you. And I can't, there can be zero vibe that this is weird for me, right? Otherwise, his body's going to tense and he's not going to release what he needs to release. Body needed to get rid of that shit, right? And so the same kind of thing, do you provide the psychological safety, as we've talked about earlier, the sense of community? Exactly. Hey, I'm here for you. And then defending like, hey, I'm going to make sure nothing happens while you are, I'm going to create the space, which we've talked about in the past, for you to get this point, whatever it is that's hurting you right now, to get it out with no judgment on it at all. Did I connect all three of those dots?
That was amazing. Yes. And here's what happens, because you're so right on, Mark. Here's what happens is when we get that from another man, then we don't need to go pick up something and go harm other people. We don't need to go home and harm our partners. We don't need to blow up in a grocery store or a church or a school. We don't need to do that. And I think this is particularly important for men because, and again, I'll refer back to Trevor's Instagram post, is when there's a shooting like there was, nobody says, what was her name? Nobody says that. They go, what was his name? Yeah. And this is, and probably somebody could do research and go, well, back 2 years ago, a woman did that. That could probably happen.
Of course.
But it's like, this is happening because we as men are not allowing ourselves either to be supported or we're not supporting. And the messages that are coming out are not about, what can I do to help you, brother? What can I do to help you? And then being willing to literally let someone take their emotional shit and just be with them. And
without judgment.
Yeah, without judgment. That's the other piece. It's like I've had many men come up to me after some of the men's work initiations that we've done and go, I can't do what you do, Dewey. And it's like, on one level,
Dewey, Kant lives on Won't Street.
Yeah, right. Ooh, I love that. You can be there. You can be there. You can be present.
Yep.
You can be
Right.
relatable. You can, and that's what creates safety.
Yeah.
And that's what creates people knowing where they belong. When we feel safe and we know where we belong, people do not get hurt.
So the action out of this staggeringly powerful conversation is to be on the lookout for a situation this week when you can practice safety, whatever that means, whether it's for yourself or it's for someone else, and hold space in everything that we've said. And if you've never done that before, you've never intentionally, consciously, first off, I'm charging you to be aware. So light your radar up, then do that thing. Then you'll have what I'm famously known for saying, you'll have one in a row.
Exactly.
You'll have one in a row and you go, huh, how'd that feel? Probably felt good. Even if it was, I made myself feel safe.
Right.
Or I made, hopefully it's, I help someone else feel safe. Mr. Freeman, I love our conversations, man.
I love our conversations. And would you say that one line again? I have one in a row. That's so powerful.
There's, I frequently deal with people who hear something and have never done that thing. And I'll say, hey, go, life's a fucking experiment. Go try it. Then you'll have one in a row. And when you have one in a row, you're like, yeah, then commit to doing the second one, because that's where the growth is. That's when you begin to have momentum along an intentional path, when you commit to taking the next step. First step is a bitch on anything given. Give yourself an attaboy, one in a row, and commit to doing the next step, because then 3, 4, and 5 are logarithmically easier.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, buddy.